The massive docking ring of the Galactic Defense Fleet Academy stretched out like a diamond necklace against the void. High Admiral Cathrax of the Arxian Empire stood at the observation deck, his crystalline form refracting the light of nearby stars as he watched the approaching human vessel with barely concealed disdain. "They dare to bring that collection of debris to our most prestigious military institution?" he asked, his translator struggling to convey the full depth of his contempt. Besides him, Ambassador Zinra of the Zethari Collective rippled her bioluminescent membrane in what passed for amusement among her kind. The humans were invited out of political necessity, nothing more. Let them have their moment of pretend glory. The U.S. Phoenix approached the docking ring at a deliberate pace, its hull a patchwork of different metals and materials that seemed to have been assembled by a colorblind child with a welding torch. Next to the crystalline perfection of the Arxian warships and the organic grace of the Zethari vessels, it looked like something that should have been scrapped a century ago. On the Phoenix's bridge, Captain Amanda Cooper watched the reaction through her ship's external cameras. Her XO, Lieutenant Commander Marcus Rodriguez, stood at her right shoulder, his face set in the carefully neutral expression they'd both perfected during diplomatic training. "They're recording us, Captain," Rodriguez murmured. "Betting pools have already opened on how long before we either break down or crash into the dock." Cooper's lips twitched in a brief smile. "Good. The higher the odds against us, the better the payout when we prove them wrong." The Phoenix's helm officer, Sarah Chen, made minute adjustments to their approach vector. What the watching aliens saw as clumsy course corrections were actually precise movements designed to give their sensors multiple angles of the ship, all while revealing exactly nothing about its true capabilities. "Ma'am," the ship's engineer, Chief Petty Officer Jackson Williams, called from his station. "They're trying to scan our engine configuration. Want me to let them see the dummy readings?" "Give them the full show, Chief. Let's really sell the illusion." The Phoenix's outer hull began to vibrate slightly, emitting the kind of power signature that suggested a barely contained reactor on its last legs. In reality, the ship's true power plant was running at less than 20% capacity, its energy masked by layers of radiation-absorbing materials salvaged from old nuclear cleanup vessels. As they approached their assigned berth, a sleek Arxian diplomatic shuttle pulled alongside. Its crystal-clear hull revealed its occupants clearly, a group of junior officers recording the human ship with what they thought was subtle mockery. "Incoming transmission," Rodriguez reported. "They're offering assistance in case our primitive docking systems aren't up to the task." Cooper straightened in her chair. "Patch them through to my station, only audio and visual." She touched a control, and a holographic face materialized above her console, an Arxian junior lieutenant who couldn't quite hide his smirk. "Human vessel Phoenix," he said, each word dripping with false concern. "Our sensors indicate your approach vector is less than optimal. Would you like us to extend our guidance beams?" Cooper let her expression show just the right amount of wounded pride mixed with gratitude. "That's very kind of you, Lieutenant, but the Phoenix may be ugly as sin, but she's never let us down yet." She paused for effect. "Though if you're offering, we wouldn't mind a recording of how your beautiful ships handle the docking procedures. For training purposes, of course." The lieutenant's smirk widened as he cut the transmission. Cooper could almost hear him racing to share what he thought was evidence of human technological inadequacy with his colleagues. "All hands," Cooper broadcast across the ship's internal comms. "We're about to dock. Remember the plan. Look impressed by everything. Act a little overwhelmed, and above all, keep our true capabilities under wraps until the war games begin." The Phoenix made its final approach, its thrusters firing in what appeared to be an awkward dance, but was actually a precisely choreographed performance. As they locked into place among the gallery of advanced alien vessels, Cooper allowed herself a moment of pride. The real show hadn't even started yet, but already their audience was exactly where they wanted them, completely and utterly fooled. Combat Exercise Alpha 7 will commence in 5 minutes, the automated range control voice echoed through the Phoenix's bridge. All participating vessels, assume your starting positions. Captain Cooper watched as 3 gleaming Arxian warships and 2 bioluminescent Sethri vessels moved into perfect formation. The Phoenix, by contrast, seemed to wobble slightly as it took its position at the back of the group. "They've posted the challenge parameters," Rodriguez reported, his eyes scanning the tactical display. 3 drone ships, heavily shielded, hidden in a mass of self-replicating space mines. Time limit: 15 minutes. Mission failure if any friendly ship takes critical damage. Cooper nodded, her eyes fixed on the asteroid field ahead. "Chief Williams, how's our rust bucket holding up?" "Running at 30% apparent efficiency, Captain," the engineer replied with a grin. "To anyone scanning us, we look like we're barely keeping the lights on. They'll never spot the power we're feeding to the impact predictors." "Range control, this is U.S. Phoenix," Cooper broadcast on the open channel. "Request permission to take point position." She deliberately let a note of uncertainty creep into her voice. The response was immediate. High Admiral Kafrax's voice dripped with condescension. "Denied, human vessel. Your ship's capabilities are unproven. Maintain rear position and observe how proper military vessels handle this exercise." "Understood, Admiral," Cooper replied, then switched to internal comms. "Sarah, plot me a course right through the middle of that mess. Marcus, get me firing solutions based on those Rakachet calculations we worked up." "Already on it, Captain." Chen's fingers danced across her console. "I've got 3 possible routes that'll give us maximum chaos." The exercise began with a flash of warning lights. The alien ships moved forward in perfect coordination, their advanced sensors mapping safe passages through the minefield. The Phoenix waited 10 seconds, then surged forward with what appeared to be reckless abandon. "Are they mad?" Kathrax's voice crackled over the open channel. "Phoenix, fall back immediately. You'll trigger every mine in the field." Cooper ignored him. "Now, Sarah." The Phoenix plunged into the minefield like a bull in a china shop, but every seemingly random movement was precisely calculated. The ship's hull, a patchwork of materials chosen for their specific deflection properties, began to show its worth. The first mine detonated against their port side. Instead of absorbing the blast, the hull plates, salvaged from old orbital defense platforms, redirected the energy at a precise angle. The explosion cascaded through the field, creating a chain reaction that cleared a path while simultaneously revealing the first drone ship. Target 1 spotted. Rodriguez called out, "Firing solution ready." "Take the shot," Cooper ordered. The Phoenix's main gun, which looked like it had been cobbled together from 3 different weapon systems because it had been, fired a single round. It struck a piece of debris at exactly the right angle, ricocheted off 2 more fragments, and hit the drone ship from behind, right through its shield's weak point. "1 down." Rodriguez's voice was triumphant. Second target emerging on Vector 317. The alien ships had frozen in place, their commanders unable to process what they were seeing. The Junkyard ship was dancing through the minefield like a drunken ballet dancer, each stumble and spin actually a perfectly executed maneuver. 2 more shots, 2 more impossible Rakachets, and 2 more drones disabled. The Phoenix emerged from the other side of the minefield, its hull scorched but intact, having completed the exercise in under 5 minutes. Silence filled the command channel until Cooper keyed her mic. "Range control, U.S. Phoenix. Exercise complete. Requesting permission to return to starting position for the next round." She paused. Unless, of course, you'd prefer we sit back and observe some more proper military tactics. The silence stretched for another 10 seconds before High Admiral Thrax responded, his voice noticeably less condescending. Permission granted, Phoenix. And, well done, though your methods are unorthodox. Thank you, Admiral, Cooper replied, then switched back to internal comms. Well done, everyone. But remember, that was just the opening act. Let's not show them all our tricks just yet. As the Phoenix moved back to its starting position, Cooper noticed the alien ships maintaining a slightly larger distance than before. The laughter had stopped, replaced by something far more valuable: uncertainty. The second day of exercises brought a new challenge: ship-to-ship combat in a dense nebula. The Phoenix drifted at the edge of the purple-tinged gas cloud, its patchwork hull looking even more decrepit in the ethereal light. This time, however, the alien vessels kept their distance. They're scanning us again, Chief Williams reported from engineering. Much more thoroughly than yesterday. Looks like we got their attention. Cooper smiled as she watched the Arxian and Zethri ships conducting their pre-exercise suites. How's our camouflage holding up? Like a charm, Captain. Those rust streaks are scrambling their sensors just like we planned. All they're seeing is surface corrosion and power fluctuations. The rust was actually a sophisticated metamaterial salvage from experimental stealth fighters, carefully applied to look like decay. Each streak had been positioned to create a complex interference pattern that played havoc with advanced scanning systems. Ambassador Zinra's voice crackled over the command channel. Phoenix, our sensors indicate several structural compromises in your outer hull. Perhaps you should withdraw from this exercise. Thank you for your concern, Ambassador, Cooper replied, noting the shift from mockery to cautious respect. But the Phoenix was built to take a beating. We'll manage. Rodriguez leaned close to her chair. They've posted the exercise parameters. Capture the flag rules. Each ship has a beacon that needs to be protected while trying to capture others. Nebula will limit sensor range and weapons lock. Perfect. Cooper switched to internal comms. Listen up, everyone. Time to show them why we don't rely on fancy targeting systems. Sarah, plot us a course right through the densest part of that cloud. The exercise began, and the alien ships immediately split into hunting groups, their advanced sensors struggling to penetrate the nebula's interference. The Phoenix, instead of joining the careful search pattern, plunged straight into the heart of the gas cloud. Visibility down to 10%, Chen reported from the helm. Exactly where we wanted. Activate the hull polarization, Cooper ordered. Let's show them what those dents can really do. What the aliens had dismissed as battle damage was actually a network of reactive armor panels, each one capable of absorbing and redistributing energy weapons fire. The dents were carefully shaped dishes that could focus and reflect incoming attacks. An Arxian cruiser emerged from the purple haze, its crystal hull gleaming. It fired a warning shot. A standard protocol for these exercises. The energy beam struck one of the Phoenix's damaged panels. Instead of scoring the hull, the beam was caught, channeled through the network of dents, and reflected back at 4 times its original power. The Arxian ship's shields flared and failed. Target disabled. Rodriguez reported with satisfaction. Their beacon is ready for capture. Before the Arxian commander could process what had happened, the Phoenix was already moving. Its corroded hull now absorbed the purple light of the nebula, making it nearly invisible. This wasn't advanced technology, just clever application of materials chosen for their light-absorbing properties. 2 Zethri ships converged on their position, their bioorganic hulls pulsing with warning lights. They fired together, a complex pattern of energy weapons designed to overwhelm any single shield. Now they're getting serious, Cooper noted. Chief, show them why we keep those exposed power conduits on the outside. The exposed systems, actually a web of superconducting channels, caught the energy attack and fed it directly into the Phoenix's power grid. The ship's lights brightened noticeably. "Thank you for the power boost," Cooper broadcast to the stunned Zethra commanders. "Our turn." The Phoenix's main guns, now charged with the enemy's own energy, fired 2 precise shots. Each one found its mark, disabled the Zethri ships, and left their beacons ripe for collection. As the exercise ended, with the Phoenix holding all 3 captured beacons, Admiral Cathrax's voice held a note of wonder. "Captain Cooper, I begin to suspect we have seriously underestimated human engineering philosophy." "That's the general idea, Admiral," Cooper replied. "After all, the best surprises are the ones that don't look like surprises at all." The emergency alert cut through the post-exercise debriefing like a knife. Red warning lights flashed across every ship in the fleet as the distress call echoed through the command channel. "This is the luxury liner Star Dreams," a panicked voice transmitted. "We've been boarded by pirates in the Thorax asteroid belt. They've disabled our engines and—" The transmission cut off in a burst of static. High Admiral Cathrax's voice followed immediately. "All combat-capable vessels, prepare for emergency response. The Star Dreams carries over 2,000 civilians from 12 different species." Cooper was already moving. "Sarah, get me the asteroid belt's current composition. Marcus, pull up everything we have on known pirate tactics in that sector." The massive display screen showed the situation in stark detail. The Thorax belt was one of the densest and most treacherous fields in the sector, its fragments charged with unusual magnetic properties that played havoc with modern navigation systems. Arxian Battle Group unable to establish safe navigation path. Came the first report. "Our computers cannot compensate for the magnetic interference." Zethri vessels experiencing similar difficulties, Ambassador Zinra added. "Our bioneural navigation is being disrupted by the field's properties." Cooper keyed the main command channel. "This is Phoenix. We can navigate the field manually. Request permission to proceed." There was a moment of hesitation before Cathrax responded. "Your ship barely holds together in open space, Captain Cooper. That asteroid field would tear you apart." "With respect, Admiral, that's exactly why we'll make it through." Cooper's voice was firm. "Our outdated manual controls don't rely on computer navigation. And as for our hull, well, you've seen what it can really do." A tense 5 seconds passed. "Permission granted, Phoenix, but you will not go alone. Lieutenant Commander Vextral's light cruiser will accompany you to the edge of the field." "Understood, Admiral." Cooper switched to internal comms. "All hands, this is the captain. What we're about to do is technically impossible, so we're going to do it by the book. The human book. Chief, give me everything you can from those salvage mining thrusters." "Aye, Captain." "Rerouting power now." Those old colony ship maneuvering jets weren't pretty, but they're precise as a surgeon's scalpel. The Phoenix moved forward, its ungainly form now moving with deliberate purpose. Behind them, the sleek Arxian light cruiser followed, its commander watching with professional interest. They'd reached the edge of the asteroid field, where the magnetic disturbances were already visible as dancing lines of blue energy between the rocks. The Arxian ship's sensors were going haywire, its advanced systems unable to make sense of the chaos. "This is where we part ways," Cooper transmitted to the cruiser. "We'll send coordinates once we've secured the liner." "How will you navigate?" Vextral asked, genuine curiosity in his voice. "The magnetic fields are completely random." Cooper smiled. "Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. Sarah, show them how we do this on Earth." Chen's hands moved across her console with practiced precision. The Phoenix began to weave through the asteroid field, not fighting the magnetic forces, but using them. Each burst from the maneuvering thrusters was timed to work with the field's flow, like a kayaker navigating rapids. Incredible, Vextrol murmured over the channel. They're using the interference patterns themselves as a navigation aid. The Phoenix disappeared deeper into the field, its patchwork hull actually helping it blend with the chaotic environment. Cooper watched the tactical display as they closed in on the Star Dream's last known position. Pirates won't be expecting anyone to make it through that mess, Rodriguez noted. We'll have the element of surprise. That's not all we'll have, Cooper replied. Chief, are those old Marine Corps boarding pods ready? Loaded and armed, Captain. The pirates think nobody can reach them. They're about to learn why humans never got rid of obsolete combat training. The Phoenix continued its dance through the asteroid field, each movement calculated yet appearing random to any observers. They were about to show the galaxy another side of human innovation, not just surviving the impossible, but turning it to their advantage. The Star Dreams hung in space like a wounded swan, its elegant hull marred by scorch marks from the pirates' attack. 3 hostile ships surrounded it, their weapons trained on the liner's most vulnerable points. Through the Phoenix's external cameras, Cooper could see armed figures moving behind the liner's viewport windows. Tactical analysis, Cooper ordered, her voice barely above a whisper despite the fact that sound couldn't travel in space. Rodriguez's response was equally quiet, the entire bridge crew operating in combat silence mode. 3 modified cargo ships, heavily armed. Scanning shows 20-plus armed boarders inside the liner. They're using the passengers as human shields. Classic hostage formation. Life sign reading. 2,312 on the liner, Captain. Multiple species, lots of children. Chief Williams added from his station. Those pirates sure know how to pick their targets. Cooper's expression hardened. Sarah, position us behind that largest asteroid. Time to show them why we keep those ugly sensor baffles. The Phoenix drifted into position, its hull's irregular pattern blending perfectly with the asteroid's mottled surface. What the pirates saw as random patches of discoloration were actually advanced sensor-absorbing materials, salvaged from old stealth satellites. Marines, prepare for drop, Cooper ordered through the internal comm. Remember your training. Just like the Luna Station crisis. In the Phoenix's launch bay, 3 squads of Space Marines checked their gear. Their armor wasn't the sleek, power-assisted suits used by most modern militaries. Instead, they wore what looked like patchwork combat suits, each piece chosen for proven reliability rather than appearance. Boarding pods ready, the Marine commander reported. Just like old times, Captain. Cooper smiled. The pods were actually modified escape vessels from decommissioned mining ships, chosen because their signatures would register as debris on most modern sensors. Launch on my mark. The Phoenix's external cameras caught a brief transmission between the pirate ships. They were getting nervous about the magnetic interference, their modern systems struggling to maintain formation in the asteroid field. Now, Cooper ordered. The boarding pods launched silently, their trajectories masked by the natural magnetic disturbances. They looked like nothing more than random debris knocked loose from the asteroids, until they struck. Each pod hit its target with surgical precision, latching onto the pirates' ships at their blind spots. Before alarms could even sound, Marine teams were cutting through hulls with tools that looked antiquated, but were chosen for one simple reason. They worked. Team 1 has breached, the Marine commander reported. Team 2 and 3, proceeding to secondary targets. Cooper turned to her tactical officer. Now, Marcus, show them why we keep those surplus weapon mounts. The Phoenix's main guns, a collection of different weapon systems that somehow work together, opened fire. Each shot was precisely calculated to disable rather than destroy, taking advantage of the pirate's ship's structural weaknesses. Hull breach on Pirate Vessel 1. Rodriguez reported with professional satisfaction. Their shields were configured for modern weapons. They never expected kinetic rounds. Inside the Star Dreams, the pirates found themselves fighting an enemy they couldn't counter. The human Marines moved with practiced efficiency, their outdated tactics perfect for close-quarter combat in artificial gravity. Bridge secured, came the first report. Engine room secured. Teams moving to passenger sections. Within 20 minutes, it was over. The pirates, with their modern weapons and shields, had been completely overwhelmed by what they saw as primitive technology and tactics. Not a single hostage had been harmed. As the Phoenix moved to dock with the Star Dreams, a transmission came through from the Arxian fleet waiting at the edge of the asteroid field. Captain Cooper. Admiral Cathrax's voice had lost all trace of its former condescension. Your unorthodox methods have saved over 2,000 lives today. Perhaps it's time we reconsidered our definition of advanced technology. Cooper looked around her bridge, at the blend of old and new that had proved so effective. Sometimes, Admiral, the most advanced technology is the one that simply works. Now, shall we escort these passengers home? The debriefing chamber of the Galactic Defense Fleet Academy had never been so crowded. Representatives from 12 species sat in rapt attention as Captain Cooper stood before the holographic display, the Phoenix's schematics rotating slowly above the central platform. As you can see, Cooper gestured to a section of the hull that had previously been dismissed as patch repairs. Each component of our ship was chosen for a specific reason. This section here, salvaged from the Europa deep-sea mining fleet. Those ships survived pressures that would crush most modern vessels. Admiral Cathrax's crystalline form shifted in what the humans had learned was an expression of deep interest. But why not simply design new components with similar specifications? Because these parts, Cooper highlighted another section, have already proven themselves in real-world conditions. The armor plating along our port side that protected a colony ship during the Titan solar flare crisis. We don't just know it works in theory. We've seen it work when everything else failed. Ambassador Zinra's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with understanding. You build not from technical specifications, but from historical success. Exactly. Chief Williams stepped forward, his engineering uniform still showing scorch marks from the recent battle. Every flaw in our design is actually a feature that saved lives in some past crisis. We don't cover them up or replace them. We learn from them. The hologram shifted to show the Phoenix's weapon systems. Several alien officers leaned forward, their previous disdain replaced by professional curiosity. Your targeting systems, a Zethary tactical officer noted. They're not actually primitive, are they? Rodriguez smiled. They're hybrid systems. The base computer is modern, but it's running combat algorithms developed during 100 different space battles. We don't just update to the latest version. We keep what works and add new layers of functionality. The display zoomed in on the ship's power distribution network, showing how the seemingly random layout actually created multiple redundant systems. In the recent crisis, Cooper continued, our ship wasn't just surviving the asteroid field. It was using the magnetic interference to mask our approach. The same properties that disrupted your advanced navigation systems actually enhanced our manual controls. An Arxian engineer raised a crystal appendage. But surely modern materials would provide better performance than these recycled components. Better performance under ideal conditions. Absolutely, Williams acknowledged. But space isn't ideal. We build for the worst-case scenario, not the best case. Every piece of our ship has already survived something that should have destroyed it. The hologram shifted again, showing the recent rescue operation. The Phoenix's approach through the asteroid field drew murmurs of appreciation, now that the observers understood the true complexity behind its seemingly chaotic movements. "Your Marines," a senior Zethary commander spoke up. "They used similar principles in their equipment." "Standard human doctrine," Cooper confirmed. "Every piece of gear has to prove itself in the field before it becomes standard issue. We'd rather use outdated equipment that we know will work than risk lives on unproven technology." Admiral Cathrax rose, his crystalline form catching the light. "The Galactic Defense Fleet has long prided itself on having the most advanced technology in known space. But perhaps we have been too quick to discard proven solutions in favor of theoretical improvements." The Admiral moved to stand beside Cooper, a gesture of equality that would have been unthinkable just days ago. "Captain Cooper, the Fleet Council has a proposal. We would like to establish a joint technology exchange program, not to replace your methods with ours, but to learn how both approaches might work together." Cooper smiled. "That's actually a very human approach, Admiral. Taking the best of multiple systems and making something new that works better than either alone." The chamber filled with appreciative murmurs. The Phoenix had done more than just prove itself in combat. It had challenged fundamental assumptions about progress and innovation. Though, Cooper added with a slight grin, "We might want to work on the aesthetics a bit. Just because something works doesn't mean it has to be quite so eye-catching." The laughter that filled the chamber was genuine this time, not the mockery of days past, but the shared amusement of colleagues who had learned to see past surface appearances to the true value beneath. The final exercise of the joint training program was designed to be impossible. 16 ships against a simulated Dreadnought-class enemy vessel, with the exercise parameters set far beyond normal safety margins. The goal wasn't just to win. It was to see how different species handled certain defeat. "They're testing our decision-making under extreme pressure," Rodriguez observed as the Phoenix took its position in the formation. "The psychological profile is as important as the combat performance." Cooper nodded, studying the massive holographic representation of their opponent. The simulated Dreadnought was a monster, its specifications making even the most advanced alien ships look like toys in comparison. "Chief," she called over the intercom, "how are those emergency systems we discussed?" William's voice came back with a note of anticipation. "Ready to go, Captain. Though I should mention that if this wasn't a simulation, what we're about to try would be absolutely insane." "Noted." Cooper smiled. "Sarah, plot me a direct course to their main reactor housing. Marcus, I want every scrap of sensor data we have on their shield configurations." The exercise began with a devastating display of force. The Dreadnought's first volley disabled 3 ships instantly, their simulated systems overwhelmed by the sheer power of the attack. Arxian Battle Group, attempting strategic withdrawal. Cathrax's voice was tight with frustration. "Our weapons have no effect on their primary shields." Zethary vessels moving to flanking positions, Ambassador Zinra added, attempting to find weaknesses in their defense grid. Cooper watched as the alien ships executed perfect tactical maneuvers, their formations flawless, their attacks precisely coordinated. And none of it made any difference. The simulated Dreadnought swatted them aside like insects. "All ships," Cooper broadcast on the command channel. "We're going to try something. It's either brilliant or suicidal, probably both. Request permission to take point." There was only a brief pause before Cathrax responded. "Granted, Phoenix. Show use another human solution." All hands, Cooper switched to internal comms. "What we're about to do goes against every safety protocol in the book. Chief, begin emergency reactor venting. Sarah, plot an attack vector that looks like we're trying to run." The Phoenix broke formation, its movements erratic, as if the ship had taken critical damage. Radiation warnings began blaring across every sensor in the fleet as the human vessel's reactor appeared to go into catastrophic failure. By the first dawn, an alien commander gasped. "Their containment is breaking down." But Cooper wasn't done. Marcus, reverse power to the whole polarization grid. Chief, give me everything we've got. Push it past red line. The Phoenix's patchwork hull began to glow as it absorbed its own radiation leak, the energy building to impossible levels. What looked like a catastrophic system failure was actually a carefully orchestrated power buildup. They're not running. Admiral Cathrax realized suddenly. They're building to critical mass. The simulated dreadnought's computers finally recognized the threat, but too late. The Phoenix had already closed to point-blank range, its hull now blazing like a miniature sun. Now, Cooper ordered, full discharge, all systems. The energy the Phoenix had been building, a combination of its own reactor output and the absorbed radiation, released in a single massive burst. The ship's unique hull configuration acted as a focusing lens, turning the entire vessel into one massive energy weapon. The dreadnought's shields, designed to stop conventional weapons, had no defense against a ship turning itself into a giant radiation bomb. The simulation ended with both the Phoenix and the dreadnought registered as destroyed, but the exercise's primary target had been eliminated. As the holographic displays faded, dead silence filled the command channel. Finally, Admiral Cathrax spoke. Captain Cooper, was that tactic based on a real human battle strategy? Loosely based on the Battle of Armstrong Station, Cooper replied, though the original version was even more reckless. Sometimes the only way to win is to be willing to try something that, by all normal standards, is completely impossible. And if this had been real? The Admiral asked. Then we'd have started repairs the moment we landed, Cooper said simply. After all, that's another human tradition, building something better from what survives. 6 months later, the Phoenix docked at the Galactic Defense Fleet Academy again. This time, however, the docking bay was packed with engineers and officers from dozens of species, all eagerly awaiting its arrival. Captain Cooper couldn't help but smile at the irony. Hard to believe this is the same place that laughed at us half a year ago, Rodriguez remarked as they prepared for disembarkation. Now they're fighting for a chance to study our primitive design philosophy. The changes were already visible in the ships around them. The Arxian vessels still gleamed like crystal, but now they sported what looked like deliberate imperfections, tested and proven components from past battles, proudly displayed rather than hidden away. Admiral Cathrax met them at the airlock, his crystalline form now decorated with what appeared to be a piece of battle-scarred armor. Captain Cooper, welcome back. The first graduating class of the Joint Engineering Program awaits your inspection. The main assembly hall had been transformed into a showcase of innovation. Young engineers from every major species had spent the past 6 months learning to blend traditional human engineering principles with their own advanced technologies. As you can see, the Admiral gestured to the first display. We've started implementing your philosophy of proven performance over theoretical perfection. This new shield generator design incorporates salvaged components from 5 different historic space battles. Cooper walked the line of projects, each one more impressive than the last. A Zethri design team had created a hybrid life support system that combined their bioorganic technology with tried and true human backup systems. An Arxian group had developed a new hull material that actually became stronger after surviving damage. The most significant change, Cathrax continued, leading them to a massive holographic display, is in our training programs. We've started including historical battle analysis alongside theoretical studies. Every new design must now include at least 3 proven legacy components. Chief Williams, who had been examining the technical specifications, let out a low whistle. They're not just copying our ideas, they're building on them, making them better. That's the point, Cooper replied. We never claimed our way was the only way, just that there was value in learning from the past. The tour culminated in the unveiling of the Academy's newest training vessel, At first glance, it looked like a standard Arxian cruiser, all crystal spires and elegant lines. But a closer look revealed the influence of human design philosophy, reinforced sections made from battle-tested materials, redundant systems proudly displayed, and a hull that told the story of its evolution. "We call it the Bridge," Admiral Cathrax announced, "because it represents the connection between our different approaches to engineering, the perfect blend of advanced theory and proven practice." Ambassador Zinra, her bioluminescent patterns forming complex patterns of respect, stepped forward. "The Galactic Council has officially recognized the value of the human engineering doctrine. All future fleet vessels will be required to incorporate both advanced technology and proven legacy systems." Cooper looked around the room, at the young engineers eagerly taking notes, at the veteran officers nodding in approval, and at her own crew standing proud. "The Phoenix was never about being the best or the most advanced," she said, addressing the assembly. "It was about understanding that every scar, every patch, every ugly repair tells a story of survival. When we build ships, we're not just creating machines, we're preserving the lessons learned by those who came before us." As if to emphasize her point, a group of first-year cadets rushed past, excitedly discussing a project to incorporate salvaged engine components into a new drive system design. "You've changed the way we think about progress," Admiral Cathrax said quietly. "We used to believe that newer always meant better. Now we understand that true innovation means building on the foundation of experience." Cooper watched as the Phoenix's ugly design features were being carefully documented by a team of alien engineers. In the end, that's the real human legacy. Not just surviving, but learning from every victory and every defeat, and passing those lessons on to the next generation. The laughter had long since faded, replaced by something far more valuable: understanding. The Phoenix had done more than prove itself. It had bridged the gap between theory and practice, between innovation and experience, between the future and the past.